Saturday morning, I met with the board at Thomas's house. Beige siding. A porch swing that creaked every time the wind moved. 6 members sat around the dining table. Coffee cups and printouts of Teresa Ruiz's articles scattered between them. Brenda's chair sat empty. Thomas opened the meeting. "Mr. Holloway, first, thank you for coming. We've all read the article. Most of us didn't know about the road, or the water, or, well, any of this." Sandra, the vice president, leaned forward. "We joined this HOA to keep the neighborhood organized, not to fund lawsuits. Brenda told us the road was county maintained." She lied. "We feel blindsided." I nodded. "I don't want enemies here. I want to rebuild my grandfather's cabin, maintain access, and be a good neighbor. But I can't do that with gates and trenches blocking me in." Thomas handed me a manila envelope. "You'll want to see this." Yesterday morning, Brenda withdrew $10,000 from the HOA account without board approval. Memo line says legal expenses. "We think she's paying her own lawyer," Sandra added. "She's also been deleting emails from the HOA server. We're trying to recover them." I felt my jaw tighten. "That's embezzlement, if you can prove it." Sandra nodded. "We've already filed a report with the county sheriff. But right now, we need a way out of this mess." I took a deep breath. "Then, let's talk about solutions." I laid out my plan on the table, literally. Blueprints, survey maps, and a printed copy of Pop's 1989 agreement. "I'm not interested in punishing anyone," I said. "Here's what I propose. The HOA acknowledges my ownership of the road and spring in writing. In return, I'll grant a 20-year easement so residents can keep using the road, same as before. The only condition is that the HOA pays the back fees $47,000 and we establish a new maintenance agreement." Sandra frowned slightly. "That's a lot of money." "It is," I said. "But that's 15 years of unpaid easement, and I'll let you pay it over 5 years, interest-free. Consider it a peace offering." Thomas looked at the others. "That's fairer than what Brenda told us we'd be facing." One of the younger members, a contractor named Leon, cleared his throat. "And the water. We're hearing rumors you plan to shut it off." "I'm not shutting off anyone's water," I said. "But the water rights are legally mine. We can put a formal usage contract in place, no changes to your supply, just proper paperwork, so this can't happen again." The tension in the room eased a little. People started nodding. Sandra finally said, "We can vote on that this afternoon." "I think everyone's tired of fighting." Thomas smiled faintly. "Pop would have liked you, Marcus." I almost smiled back. He'd have said it shouldn't take a courtroom to teach people to read a deed. By Monday, news of the meeting had spread through Pine Ridge like a mountain wildfire. Brenda wasn't happy. She stormed into the HOA office at 9 a.m., screaming about traders and illegal meetings. Within an hour, she'd emailed the entire neighborhood calling me a land thief and claiming the board had been coerced. That email didn't land the way she hoped. Half the homeowners replied, all with screenshots of county maps proving the road wasn't theirs. Someone even posted the judge's order from the previous hearing. By noon, Brenda had locked herself in the HOA office and called another emergency meeting. That meeting didn't go as planned either. When she showed up, 4 board members resigned on the spot, citing financial misconduct and abuse of authority. Sandra assumed interim control, notified the bank, and froze the HOA's account. She also called me. "She's losing it," Sandra said. "You've got homeowners demanding refunds for the assessment. She's threatening to sue all of us." "Let her," I said. The moment she filed that false complaint about my cabin, she crossed from annoying to criminal. Sandra hesitated. "She's saying you forged those land documents?" I laughed. Then she's about to find out what a recorded federal land patent looks like in a courtroom. 2 days later, we were back in court. Brenda versus Marcus, round 2. Judge Portman looked even less patient than before. "Miss Whitmore," she said, "I granted a continuance for you to produce documentation proving HOA ownership or valid easement rights. Do you have that documentation?" Brenda's attorney stood. Your Honor, we've been unable to locate the original easement records. We believe they may have been lost during the developer's bankruptcy in 2016. Portman cut him off. Believing and proving are different. Mr. Holloway, you still claim sole ownership of the access road? Yes, Your Honor, I said. And I've filed certified copies of the land patent, survey maps, and the terminated easement with the county recorder. Sylvia slid the evidence across the table, neat as a deck of cards. Judge Portman scanned the documents. The record supports Mr. Holloway's claim. This court finds the HOA has no recorded ownership or easement rights to the access road. The restraining order request is dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Holloway's countermotion for declaratory. Judgment is granted. Brenda slammed her hand on the table. You can't do this. That road runs through our community. Portman didn't flinch. Then I suggest you negotiate a legal easement, Miss Whitmore, because, as of now, your homeowners are trespassing. Sylvia whispered, that's game, set, and match. But it wasn't over yet. The following week, Teresa Ruiz published a second article, County 2, Audit Pine Ridge HOA, after court defeat. Turns out, when the board froze the HOA bank account, the sheriff's office subpoenaed the records. Brenda had been paying herself double salary for 3 years and issuing reimbursement checks for consulting, expenses to her husband's old shell company. Nearly $75,000 unaccounted for. The county announced an investigation. Brenda resigned that afternoon, though she claimed it was for health reasons. She disappeared from public view, but her lawyers stayed busy. Within a month, homeowners filed a civil suit against her for misappropriation of funds. Roger Whitmore's old ethics file quietly reopened at the county level. Meanwhile, Sandra called to say the board had voted unanimously to accept my proposal. They signed the new easement and maintenance agreement within a week. I'd own and maintain the road, and the HOA would pay annual fees into a dedicated account managed by an independent treasurer. It was the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. Summer rolled in slow and golden. I hired a roofing crew from town, replaced the windows, and rebuilt Pop's porch rail by rail. Every morning, mist curled up from the creek, and the valley smelled like pine sap and rain. The cabin came alive again, solar panels on the roof, fresh stain on the siding, and the same old stone chimney that had survived 60 winters. Sometimes I'd see kids from the subdivision biking up the road, their parents waving awkwardly from SUVs. No hostility now, just a kind of cautious respect. Thomas stopped by often, usually with fresh bread from his wife. Funny, he said once, we spent years thinking this road kept us safe. Turns out it was never ours to guard. I smiled. Maybe that's the lesson: you don't own what you don't respect. Late August, I got a certified letter from Brenda's lawyer. She wanted to discuss a private settlement. I called Sylvia. She's fishing for leverage, Sylvia said. Ignore it. Her position's gone. But curiosity won. I met Brenda at a diner in town. She looked smaller somehow, hair disheveled, voice hoarse. You won, she said, without preamble. The board turned on me. The county's investigating. My husband's reputation is gone. I just wanted to protect what we built. You built it on someone else's land, I said. She sighed. I didn't know about the easement. The developer never told us. Then why fight so hard when you found out? Because control is all I ever had, she said quietly. You wouldn't understand. I stood up to leave. You're wrong. I understand perfectly. But control and ownership aren't the same thing. I paid my coffee tab and walked out into the sunlight. Behind me, Brenda stayed at the booth, staring at nothing. By September, the county finished its audit. Brenda was charged with embezzlement and filing false reports. The HOA settled quietly, issuing refunds for the illegal assessment. Teresa's third article wrapped the saga with a line that made me smile. Sometimes, the mountain doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the one who listens. I spent the rest of that fall working on the cabin. The final job was the water system. I installed a new flow regulator, modernized the pipes, and built a meter station where the spring fed into the HOA's holding tank. The system would stay public, but the gauge had a plaque. Water courtesy of the Holloway Spring ES. 1968. When I turned the valve and heard the water rush through, I thought of Pop, the man who taught me to stack wood so tight a chipmunk couldn't squeeze through, who built this place with his bare hands, who left me the tools to fight back, not with anger, but with proof. That evening, the sky burned orange over the ridge. I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the valley glow. Down below, the subdivision lights flickered on one by one tiny stars in a place that almost forgot who owned the land beneath them. Pop would have liked that. Saturday morning, I met with the HOA board at Thomas's house, 6 members, all looking tired. Sandra spoke first. "Mr. Holloway, we owe you an apology. We didn't know Brenda had a financial stake in this. She told us the road was county-maintained and you were trying to claim it illegally," Thomas added. "None of us knew about the water rights or the easement default. We thought you were the problem. They weren't bad people, retirees, families, just neighbors caught in someone else's lie. Brenda was the problem." "Can you walk us through the legal situation?" Sandra asked. Sylvia joined on speakerphone and laid it out. Pop's 12,200-acre land patent, the 45-acre sale, the easement that expired in 2011, and the HOA's total lack of claim. Their faces fell. "What would a reasonable solution look like?" Sandra asked. "I want to restore my grandfather's cabin and live here peacefully," I said. "I'll grant a permanent easement for road access. But the HOA needs to acknowledge my ownership, pay $47,000 in back fees over 10 years, and agree to shared maintenance. Split across 40 homes. That's $118 a year, less than $10 a month." Thomas did the math. "That's less than we pay Brenda's management company." "Exactly," I said. Patricia, another board member, nodded. "We'll need membership approval and to remove Brenda from the process. She won't go quietly," Thomas warned. But we have the votes. By Sunday, they'd scheduled an emergency meeting. Brenda panicked. She emailed the entire subdivision calling me a land thief, warning that property values would collapse. About a dozen households backed her. Most were just tired of fighting. Then, Monday morning, Brenda made her fatal mistake. She filed a new lawsuit claiming I was running an illegal business operating remotely from my cabin, supposedly violating zoning. She even accused me of running an Airbnb, pure fabrication. But she attached photos of my cabin and truck, photos she'd taken while trespassing. Sylvia called immediately. She just incriminated herself. "We can file criminal charges using her own evidence." By that afternoon, Sylvia filed a motion for declaratory judgment. I owned 1,155 acres, including the road. The HOA's easement had expired. I could grant or deny access at my discretion. And the HOA owed $47,000 in back fees. We also filed a trespass complaint against Brenda and hand-delivered copies to her, the board, and the local paper. Tuesday night, the clubhouse overflowed 34 of 40 households present. Brenda tried to seize control. Sandra stood. "Brenda, you're suspended as chair for fiduciary breach. Section 8.3 of the bylaws. You can't do that." Thomas banged the gavel. Meeting proceeds without Brenda as chair. The board presented survey maps, legal documents, and bank statements. "We've spent $67,000 of your dues defending property the HOA never owned," Thomas said. Gasps filled the room. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. "Here's the deal. Permanent easement, fair maintenance split, and acknowledgement of ownership. Otherwise, I close the road and we fight in court for 5 years. Your choice." Someone asked, "What about the water?" "Water stays as is." I said, "No one loses a drop. I just want peace." Sandra called for a vote to authorize the board to negotiate settlement per Marcus Holloway's terms. 29 in favor, 4 against. 1 abstention. Brenda stormed out shouting, "You'll regret this." Negotiations took a week. Sylvia and a new HOA lawyer drafted the agreement. Perpetual easement, $47,000 over 10 years. 60/40ths maintenance split. All gates removed except at my cabin. The HOA recognized my ownership and water rights. Sylvia added one clause, a historical marker at the valley entrance, Holloway Valley, East, 1952. Homesteaded by James Pop Holloway. Protected for future generations. The board approved unanimously. June 2nd, courthouse signing. Judge Portman presided. Brenda was invited, but didn't appear. "This," the judge said, "is how disputes should end through negotiation, not endless litigation. Mr. Holloway, your restraint is commendable." After we signed, a reporter asked, "You could have shut off their water. Why didn't you?" "'Cause that's not who my grandfather was," I said. "And it's not who I am." I thought that was the end of it, until the next day, when Brenda's black SUV pulled up to my cabin. "I need to say something," she said quietly. "I'm listening." I didn't know. The developer told me the road was ours. When you proved me wrong, I panicked. This HOA, it was the only thing I controlled after Roger lost his commission seat. I needed to be right. She looked older, defeated. "I'm sorry. For the cops, the gates, everything." "No, sorry doesn't fix it," I said. "But it's a start. We're selling the house, moving to Utah. Roger needs a new start." "So do I," she hesitated. "Your grandfather would be proud. Not of the fight, but of how you ended it." She drove away. I didn't feel triumphant, just done. Friday, June 6th, the historical marker ceremony drew the whole community. Families, kids, barbecue, local news. I kept my speech short. My grandfather built this valley with his hands. He believed land should be shared and protected. I'm not your landlord. I'm your neighbor. So, here's my plan. 3 initiatives. 1. Conservation easement. 800 acres of Upper Valley placed under permanent protection with Colorado open lands. 2. Public hiking trail. 3.2 miles to the ridge, open to residents and visitors by permit. 3. Pop Holloway Memorial Scholarship. $5,000 annually for a local senior writing about conservation and stewardship. Applause rolled across the field. Thomas shook my hand. "You didn't have to do any of this. Pop used to say, 'The land doesn't belong to us, we borrow it from our grandkids.' I'm just returning the favor." The story blew up. Teresa Ruiz's follow-up article, From Property War to Conservation Win, went viral. The Denver Post picked it up. Colorado Open Lands called it a model for private preservation. Even better, property values in Pine Ridge jumped 8%. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Brenda fought to protect property values by keeping me out. The thing that actually raised them was keeping the valley open. Sandra emailed me. Turns out protecting the land was good business. Oh no! I framed that email and hung it by the cabin door. By August, I'd rebuilt the porch, fixed the roof, and found a rhythm. Mornings consulting remotely, afternoons working the land. Thomas became a close friend. Deputy Hayes came by one weekend to fish. "You handled that right," he said. "A lot of guys would have gone scorched earth," Pop used to say. "You can't live in a place you've burned down." The scholarship fund grew faster than I'd hoped. Local businesses matched donations, $12,000 total the first year. The first recipient, Jasmine, wrote an essay about growing up poor in Larkspur County and watching the mountains get gated off. She wrote about Pop, about how real ownership means protecting something enough to share it. At the ceremony, when I handed her the check, she cried. So did I that evening. I visited Pop's grave. "Valley's safe now," I told him. 800 acres under conservation forever. Spring still flows. Cabin solid. First scholarship awarded. HOA's good people now. You'd be proud not of the fighting, but how it ended. We built something that'll outlast both of us. Wind moved through the pines like an answer. October marked 6 months since the first locked gate. One morning on the porch, coffee in hand, I got an email from Teresa. Attached was a short letter postmarked Utah. Brenda's letter came from Utah. I'm sorry. Scholarship's a good thing. I hope the Valley treats you well. I kept it not for forgiveness, but closure. What I learned. Know your rights. Document everything. Find allies. Play the long game. When you win, build something lasting. Pops Valley endures.